If you've played even a little bit of Monster Hunter World since its release last month, you'll know how intoxicating its gear crafting system really is. Hunting monsters is fun no matter what you're wearing, of course, but there's something special about doing it in a brand new outfit, or with a freshly upgraded weapon. Crafting, of course, requires crafting materials, and monster bones are very frequently on the list of things needed to make a new piece of gear, but with a wide array of different bones, it's not always obvious how to get the ones you'll need, or even where to go looking. Not to worry though, here is a helpful guide to most of Monster Hunter World's bone types and how to get hold of them. Apologies that this isn't a completely exhaustive list, only we've yet to grab every single last one for ourselves, as yet. Anyway, as you most probably know by now, there are 3 ways to acquire bones in Monster Hunter World: by sifting through bone piles in the environment, as rewards from hunts, and by sending palicos out on missions with the game's Tail Rider Safari function. Bone piles are the easiest method by far, owing to the fact the skeletons can't run away or beat you to a pulp. When you find a bone pile in the world, you just saunter up to it, press the right button when prompted, and help yourself to 3 bones. If you use your map and then click in the right stick when you pinpoint a bone pile, you can use your scout flies to take you straight to each one, making these sites the most reliable way to farm up bones in swift order. The main drawback, of course, is that bone piles only offer up certain types of bones. That's not so much of an issue early on in the game, but as you get to more advanced levels, you'll quickly find that those small bones just aren't cutting it anymore. So in order to make things a bit clearer, and to help steer you toward exactly the right activities to find the bones you need, here's a quick rundown of most of the different types, and where you can find them. First up, let's talk about the different sizes of standard Monster Bone. That's Monster Bone S, Monster Bone M, Monster Bone L, and Monster Bone Plus. Monster Bone S is the most common of these, being available in bone piles in any of the game's areas, whether you're low or high rank. Monster Bone M, meanwhile, is a little bit trickier to get your hands on. You can forage it from corpses and hopefully just accumulate a bunch that way, but if you're in desperate need of one, you can expect to get Monster Bone M as a low rank quest reward for hunting a Puke Puke, a Bareth, or a Toby Gadachi. Even if you're hunting alone, these monsters aren't too difficult to take out, making Monster Bone M one of the easier bones to farm as you go about the world. If you want a Monster Bone L, however, you're going to have to be prepared to work a little bit harder. These bones are given out as quest completion rewards for hunting an Anjanath, a Rathian, a Sitsuyaku, and a Radoban, all of which are more intimidating foes than your Puke Pukes or your garden variety Bareths. High-ranking hunters shouldn't have too much of a problem, but if you're just starting to set your sights on some larger monster bones, you do well to round up a few friends, or at least pop a flare in order to make sure you're going home with the bones you need, and not on a cart. Somewhat unsurprisingly then, obtaining a Monster Bone Plus is more challenging still. These bones are quest completion rewards for Legiana, Adogaron, Rathalos, and Diablos, all of which pose a serious challenge to unprepared hunters, such as myself, to be perfectly honest. You'd be well advised to make sure you're wearing decent armour when you go up against any of these monsters, as they can make short work of the underprepared. Legiana, for example, has potent ice attacks that can really land you in trouble. Make sure you've done your homework before tackling these monsters, and as is the case with all of the monsters that drop large bones, you do well to go on the hunt with a few others in order to increase your chances of success. But of course you do need to progress far enough through the game to be able to access those areas in the first place. Ancient bones are easy enough to get your mitts on. They can be found in the bone piles of the ancient forest, so simply tune your scout flies into the nearest bone pile and you should have no trouble rustling up as many as you need. Boulder bones, meanwhile, can be found in bone piles in the Wildspire Wastes. These bones are useful for making Baroth mail, but you also use them as part of a couple of different insect glaive upgrades, as well as an upgrade type for the switch axe, and one for the hammer. Coral bone, funnily enough, can be found in the bone piles in the Coral Highlands. Coral bone is a required component in half a dozen bits of armour and 5 different weapon upgrades, so chances are you'll want to grab as much of this as you can when hitting the Highlands. And then of course there's warped bone, which you can find in the Rotten Wastes. Warped bone is handy for all sorts of weapons, charms and bits of armour, but be prepared to forage a whole heap of it if you're going to commit to crafting those items. Just forging a Dragon Bone Cutter 1 for the Charge Blade, for example, requires 5 warped bone, so you can expect to find yourself sifting through the Rotten Waste bone piles quite a bit. Next up, we're going to talk about some of the quality bones. As I say, we don't have every last bone type covered off, but as these are all bones you'll need as you approach high rank, this little primer should be more than enough to get you started on the hunt for truly top-notch gear. First up, there's Sturdy Bone. This is actually one you can acquire at low rank as well as at high rank. Just search the bone piles in Coral Highlands and Rotten Vale. Depending on what weapon path you go down, you may not actually need Sturdy Bone very much at all. It's used in fairly large quantities for certain upgrades to the Greatsword, Insect Glaive and Charge Blade, but not very extensively beyond that. Quality Bone, meanwhile, is actually available in bone piles across all areas, which is handy, but it requires you to reach high rank before you can actually start foraging for it. Once you've met that requirement, in other words, it's actually pretty easy to obtain, it's just that you'll need to put in a fair amount of effort to get to that point. The same goes for Dragonbone Relic, which can be obtained from bone piles in Rotten Vale, but only once you've hit high rank. And somewhat similarly, Monster Keen Bone is available from doing some fairly ordinary things, i.e. as a quest completion reward, but only once you've hit high rank. As soon as you do, you can go and smash monsters like Puke Puke or Anjanath in the face, and then it's simply a matter of harvesting those sweet, sweet Keen Bones. And then finally in this little primer there's Wyvern Bone Mass, which you can get from Radaban hunts. So hopefully this little guide has helped demystify Monster Bones a little bit and put an end to you looking for Monster Bone L in all the wrong places. Happy crafting! As I say, this isn't an exhaustive list, so if there are any other bone types you think people might be looking for, just leave a comment down below and help your fellow hunters out. Either way, thanks very much for watching, and do feel free to check out our other Monster Hunter videos. There are plenty of them on screen now, so give one a click if you fancy. Either way, thank you very much for watching, and have a lovely day.